Okay. I'd like to choose my words carefully.
Could I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Avi Brender. I'm a town resident for the last 30 years.
Great.
And I said I'll try to choose my words carefully. I think that I, like most of the town residents, are infuriated by the fact that this whole thing was not brought more forcefully to the residents. This deal was done behind closed doors, and now we hear that we're not even allowed to look at it or interject into it. With the conversation that I have with a few township committee members, I heard that, oh, our hand was twisted to agree, whatever it's the density or the rest of it. I have one big question. Who chose RPM? How much RPM is paying for that? And what's the reason that the Main Street property became 100%, 75 units in the middle of town, 100% low-income housing?
So in terms of the selection for RPM, I just have to say that's not part of the housing element and fair share plan. What is included in the housing element and fair share plan is the fact that the site was included in the settlement agreement and the fact that RPM has already been selected, excuse me. The selection process is really not part of what I think the planning board should be considering for its consideration of adoption of the housing element and fair share plan. But in terms of why the 100% affordable housing project was selected for that site, while that too was determined in part of the settlement agreement, I've already addressed this, and that is that site was included in the settlement agreement in an effort to produce affordable housing in the short term, and as part of that, it made Fair Share Housing Center more comfortable with some of the other densities that we see stated in our settlement agreement and now in the housing plan. So as I said earlier, there was an effort to reduce density to the extent possible. One of the trade-offs for reduced densities is the inclusion of that 100% affordable housing property.
I'd just like to know if the people, which again, I did not understand from your answer, when was RPM and who selected RPM?
While it's not part of this housing element process, I'll say that was something that occurred early in the year and is a township governing body process.
So not the town chose RPM?
Yes, the town as the governing body made that, conducted a RFP process and selected RPM Development as the developer of that property.
Okay. I would like also to question who on this board, the selection, the lawyers, everybody talks very nice like a politician. Who of you knows and has the experience of 100% low-income housing in the middle of any small town? Because I do. That's what I do. So I would like to know who has the experience and understand the horrendous ramification for this entire town of 100% segregated low-income housing in the middle of town.
So I don't know that we have the answers to that on this board. This, again, as Ms. McManus said, this decision was made with the township committee as well as the selection, the committee in negotiation. Ed, I don't know if you have any further information on it, but that is not the planning board's selection. We on this board did not make any selection of any developer.
So basically, I didn't get an answer to any of my questions. We don't know who selected RPM, and we don't have the answer. How come RPM got it for $1?
So we did get an answer that it was the governing body, which is the township committee. That's a different board than this board tonight. We are the planning board.
What about the township?
What about the fact that it's a dump and there's maybe a lot of remediation work that will have to be put there. Did anybody do soil testing before allocating this as a building development, residential?
I can say that the site's conditions are well understood by the governing body, they're well understood by the developer, and they're well understood by Fair Share Housing Center. So I really don't want to get into the details of that particular site's development because it's not relevant to the policy stated in the housing element and the content of the housing plan. But just for the sake of hopefully giving some comfort, the site has undergone testing, is understood to that it will be remediated, that it will need remediation. The developer has committed to working with the township to see that the site is remediated so that it can safely be occupied for residential development.
So the developer will do the remediation?
And pay for it.
Yes,
So the town is not paying for that?
the township is not funding the remediation of the property. We're not conducting that work.
Is this site being developed as a tax credit development?
That's not yet known. The funding has not been received for the property.
So what is the town getting from this? If the town sold it for $1, what is the town getting for all this beautiful land?
The town is implementing settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center and is maintaining immunity from builder's remedy litigation.
We're giving up whatever it is, an acre in the middle of town, and the taxpayer of this town are getting nothing.
So Mr. Brender, I think she's responded to that question, but I do want to have other questions. I think we understand your point and I appreciate it. But I guess I want to see if you have any additional questions.
Just one more question, please.
Mhm.
Was there any study about the school system 5-10 years from now? Well, how is that going to affect the school system, our ranking in the state?
No, I don't believe there was a study. If there was, I'm not aware of it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.